Hey there guys, this is Sam Whitfield from the Whitfield Report and AmericanWatchman.org recording this video for you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get this video out to you. This video is about a week and a half late, but if you've been following my Facebook or Twitter timeline, you know that we've had problems with Tropical Storm Hermione here in Florida, and the hurricane caused the power to go out and therefore the internet to go out for the last 24 to 48 hours. So that's why I wasn't able to upload this video sooner than I wanted to. But as I promised to a few of you on my Twitter account a couple weeks ago, I do have an in-depth analysis of Hillary's speech on the alt-right. I'm still going to present that to you in this video. Quick note about that video. I recorded the actual video of me analyzing Hillary's speech on Tuesday, hence why in that video you'll see me wearing a different shirt, and you'll see that the date is time-stamped on Tuesday instead of Friday, which is when I'm recording / hopefully uploading this portion of the video. Plus, I lost some of the footage from the other video, and I had to do a restore and all that stuff, and it was just a mess. But anyway, so I did do an analysis of Hillary's speech on the alt-right on Tuesday. I have the video footage for you, so let me go ahead and play that for you. And it's about 53 minutes long, so I know it's a long video, but I hope you guys will enjoy it. Thank you, and I'll be back to do commentary on this after the video. Enjoy. Let's roll the tape. Alright, so as I mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, this is the speech that Hillary Clinton made on the alt-right. This was published on August 25th, so about 5 days ago now, if you're watching this on Tuesday. And I mentioned this in the intro to the video, but I have not watched this speech before. This is my first time viewing it, and I wanted to do it that way so that you could get my pure reaction to this, unscripted. As I mentioned in my article on AmericanWatchman.com, which I'll show you here in a little bit after the speech, I don't think the alt-right is perfect by any means necessary, but I do think for the most part there are good people who are not racist or anti-Semitic like Hillary is going to claim here. They're just sick of the political correctness culture, which, by the way, was created by the left 40 years ago and perpetuated under the Obama administration for the last 8 years. So, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. And but for right now, I just want to get into playing this video. It's 30 minutes long. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the whole 31-minute video. I'm going to try. But if the malarkey gets to be too much, I'll just cut it off where I need to. But I do think it's important that you guys get my unfiltered reaction. So without further ado, let's play this video. Shall we? Let's go full screen. And okay, let's hit play.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be back in Reno. Thank you. I have to say, though, I know when I'm here in Reno, I'm the other Hillary. And I am more than okay with that, because I think your mayor is doing a terrific job. And the fact that she herself is a small businesswoman and committed to really lifting up Reno and giving everybody in this great city, the biggest little city with a big heart, a chance to get ahead and stay ahead. I could not be more honored than to have her support and endorsement in this race. So thank you so much, Mayor Sheevy. And let me also thank Dr. Karen Hilgerson and everybody here at Truckee Meadows Community College. I love community colleges, and I know something about what this college is doing to give people.
Yeah, you like community colleges, but you didn't go to one. You went to a fancy law school, Hillary, so again, this is just politics, folks.
People of all ages, not just young people, a real chance to get the skills and opportunities that everybody in America deserves. So thank you. Now, I have to begin by saying my original plan for this visit was to focus on our agenda to help small businesses and entrepreneurs. This week, we proposed new steps to cut red tape and taxes to make it easier for small businesses to get the credit they need to grow and hire. I want to be a small business president. My father was a small businessman. And I believe that in America, if you can dream it, you should be able to build it. And so...
But that goes against Obama's whole grain of, if you're a businessman, you didn't build that, the government did. Someone else did that. And roads and bridges and all that stuff. Okay. I'm not going to get too nitpicky here. I just... The intro in and of itself kind of sucks, ladies and gentlemen.
We'll be talking a lot more about small business and about our economic plans in the days and weeks ahead. But today, here in this community college devoted to opening minds and creating a great understanding of the world in which we live, I want to address something that I am hearing about from Americans all over our country. Everywhere I go, people tell me how concerned they are by the divisive rhetoric coming from my opponent in this election. And I understand that concern because it's like nothing we've heard before from a nominee for President of the United States from one of our two major parties. From the start, Donald Trump has built his campaign on prejudice and paranoia. He is taking hate groups mainstream and helping a radical fringe take over the Republican Party. His disregard for the values that make our country great is profoundly dangerous. In just this past week, under the guise of outreach to African Americans, Trump has stood up in front of largely white audiences and described black communities in such insulting and ignorant terms: poverty, rejection, horrible education, no housing, no homes, no ownership, crime at levels nobody has seen. Right now, he said, you can walk down the street and get shot.
Well, isn't that true, though, Hillary? I mean, inner city areas in Chicago, in Detroit, in Ferguson, Missouri, in Baltimore, they aren't the safest right now. And Trump, he's not being insulting. Yes, he was being negative, but he was not being insulting. Because, like or not, we do have a problem in our inner cities in America. Speaking negatively about a certain area is not the same as speaking racially about an area, at least not racist wise. And I think it's very interesting that somehow Hillary thinks that talking about the problems of the inner city and saying racist things are the exact same thing. Maybe that's not what she means, but the way she just said that, it would appear that she thinks that talking about inner cities in and of itself is racist. Why? Why? It just doesn't make sense.
Those are his words. But when I hear them, I think to myself, how sad. Donald Trump misses so much. He doesn't see the success of black leaders in every field, the vibrancy of black-owned businesses, the strength of the black church. He doesn't see the excellence of historically black colleges and universities or the pride of black parents watching.
How do you know that he doesn't see the excellence of these things that you're mentioning? Again, I agree with you. The African American Christian community is strong. There are great African American business owners and great African American leaders. Trump's not denying that any of those things exist, but he's focusing on a problem which does plague the black community, and that's inner city violence, that's gangs, that's a poor education, and it's a bureaucracy in many cities that has been run by the Democrat complex, by the left. And so I think it's funny that Hillary, at least this is kind of what I'm getting, somehow she's going to blame Trump for all of the faults, or at least attempt to blame Trump for all of the faults in the African American community that have been perpetuated by her party and by her platform and by her ideology. Continuing on.
Their children thrive. He apparently didn't see Police Chief Brown of Dallas on television after the murders of 5 of his officers, conducting himself with such dignity.
And Trump, actually, if you go on his Twitter, Hillary, you'll see that Trump, I believe, praised the chief and the great job that the Dallas Police Department has been doing. Again, you know, I'm actually starting to wonder if there's any truth to whether or not Hillary is sick. Originally, I thought that was just a conspiracy theory, but Hillary is accusing Trump of doing things that he has not done so far. He did acknowledge the chief. He has acknowledged success in the African American community, but he's also addressing problems too, or trying to at least.
He certainly doesn't have any solutions to take on the reality of systemic racism and create more equity and opportunity in communities of color and for every American. It really does take a lot of nerve to ask people he's ignored and mistreated for decades, what do you have to lose? Because the answer is everything.
Bullshit. This is rich coming from a woman whose party has profited and who has succeeded from the black vote for years from manipulating the African American community. LBJ once famously said, and I quote, in 50 years, all these Iggers will be voting Democrat. So you want to talk about someone who's trying to manipulate the African American community, Hillary. Look at yourself in the mirror. we're only 5 minutes and 20 seconds into this, and we just have so much to criticize already. This is going to be a long video, I can tell.
Now, Trump's lack of knowledge or experience or solutions would be bad enough. But what he's doing here is more sinister. Trump is reinforcing harmful stereotypes and offering a dog whistle to his most hateful supporters. It's a disturbing preview of what kind of president he'd be. And that's what I want to make clear today. A man with a long history of racial discrimination, who traffics in dark conspiracy theories drawn from the pages of supermarket tabloids and the far dark reaches of the internet, should never run our government or command our military.
Okay, a couple of quick things. Historic racism from Trump? I've heard the left try and make this claim multiple times during this election, and I have plenty of issues with Donald Trump. He's not the perfect candidate. But even when I was supporting Marco Rubio, even when I was supporting Scott Walker, and Donald Trump first got into this race, and the left started claiming that Trump was racist, well, I went back to try and look for historical evidence of anything published prior to this election cycle. Couldn't find anything prior to the left's spin of this election trying to insinuate that Trump was a racist. Could not find a thing.
Ask yourself, if he doesn't respect all Americans, how can he serve all Americans? Now, I know that some people still want to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. They hope that he will eventually reinvent himself, that there's a kinder, gentler, more responsible Donald Trump waiting in the wings somewhere. Because after all, it is hard to believe anyone, let alone a nominee for president, could really believe all the things he says. But here's the hard truth. There is no other Donald Trump. This is it. And Maya Angelou, a great American whom I admired very much, she once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yeah, just like you showed yourself to the American people a few years ago when you were in front of the Benghazi hearings, and you said, in response to the question about 4 dead soldiers, what difference does it make? And again, lying about your emails, too. I know that the FBI acquitted you, but Hillary, you showed who you were the first time, and so I think if anyone should be taking your advice, you should again look at yourself in the mirror.
Well, throughout his career and this campaign, Donald Trump has shown us exactly who he is, and I think we should believe him. When he was getting his start in business, he was sued by the Justice Department for refusing to rent apartments to Black and Latino tenants. Their applications would be marked with a C for colored, and then rejected. 3 years later, the Justice Department took Trump back to court because he hadn't changed. And the pattern continued through the decades. State regulators fined one of Trump's casinos for repeatedly removing black dealers from the floor. No wonder the turnover rate for his minority employees was way above average. And let's
Okay, now here's something that I want to theorize about maybe. As far as the black tenant thing goes, again, could not find anything prior to the 2016 election indicating that Trump was racist, which leads me to believe that the mainstream media is making crap up, because they've done this a lot over the past couple of years. Secondly, in regards to the blackjack dealers, now, even though I'm 21, I have never been in a casino. Full disclosure, I know how blackjack works, though. I don't know how casinos work fully. I know how some of the games are played. But it seems to me that if someone is terrible at dealing out cards, or isn't following like the rules, then you toss them out. And unfortunately, maybe it's just a coincidence that all these bad blackjack dealers are African American. Now, before you jump on me for saying that, here's my third point of contention. Okay? As many of you know, if you follow my other page, the Whitfield Analysis, and my official Sam Whitfield page on Facebook, and if you follow me at all on Twitter at all, most of you know that back in May I took a trip to New York City, and one of the places I stopped at was Trump Tower. And when I was in Trump Tower, the first thing I noticed was there were two very well-dressed, very eloquent black gentlemen who were opening the doors for people. They were courteous. They were just outstanding gentlemen in every sense of the word. There were multiple African American employees working in the building on the first floor. One of them kindly asked me if I needed help finding anything. I asked the gentleman to point me to the gift shop, and he obliged me. Again, very courteous. The third thing about Trump Tower, which I really noticed, and this one I've talked about before, but when I went upstairs to the second floor, because Trump Tower has 2 floors that are open to the public, I talked to one of the elevator men who was Hispanic, and I went up and down the elevators a couple times, mainly actually just so I could talk to this guy. And this gentleman was Hispanic. And he also told me that he's been Trump's elevator man for the last 25 years. And that Trump is a very respectful and generous man to his employees, and to not believe a word that the media is saying. Those were his words, not mine. So these claims of racism from Hillary the liar, yeah, I'm going to take a rain check on listening to those Hill.
Let's not forget that Trump first gained political prominence leading the charge for the so-called birthers. He promoted the racist lie that President Obama is not really an American citizen part of a sustained effort to delegitimize America's first black president. And in 2015, Trump launched his...
Okay, the birther movement, although in the end it proved futile, the reason why the birther movement started was because Obama had traveled abroad his entire childhood. He may have been an American-born citizen, but he did not live the vast majority of his life in America. Even he will admit this if you read his book, Dreams of My Father, which is his biography that he wrote, I guess, about 10 years ago now. No, more like 15, actually. That was, in essence, why the birther movement started. It did get a little carried away in some aspects, but that was the purpose of the birther movement, and that was not started by Trump entirely. That was started by someone else, and Trump had jumped onto that bandwagon. Again, Hillary is misdirecting the audience here.
His own campaign for president with another racist lie. He described Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, and he accused the Mexican government of actively sending them across the border.
Okay, and again, this is another lie. He did not say all Mexicans are rapists and murderers. Disproportionately, rapists and murderers are illegal immigrants that are coming in from Mexico, disproportionately. And he also said that Mexico is dumping their criminals on us, which is true.
None of that is true. And oh, by the way, Mexico's not paying for his wall either.
Yeah, we'll see.
If he ever tries to get it built, the American taxpayer will pay for it. We'll be stuck with the bill. But there has been a steady stream of bigotry coming from him. I think we all remember when Trump said a distinguished federal judge born in Indiana could not be trusted to do his job because, quote, he's a Mexican. Think about that. The man who today is the standard bearer of the Republican Party said a federal judge who, by the way, had a distinguished record as a U.S. attorney, had to go in hiding because Mexican drug gangs were after him, who has Mexican heritage, but just like me, was born in this country, is somehow incapable solely because of his heritage. Even the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan, described that, and I quote, as the textbook definition of a racist comment. And to this day, Trump has never apologized to Judge Curiel. But for Trump, that is just par for the course. This is someone who retweets white supremacists online, like the user who goes by the name White Genocide TM. Trump took this fringe bigot with a few dozen followers and spread his message to 11 million people. His campaign famously posted an anti-Semitic image, a Star of David, imposed over a sea of dollar bills that first appeared on white supremacist websites. The Trump campaign has also selected a prominent white nationalist leader as a delegate in California, and they only dropped him under pressure. When asked in a nationally televised interview,
and who was that, by chance, Hillary? I honestly don't know. who is she talking? Who is she talking about? Now, the campaign poster in question, ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't Trump himself that was responsible for that. It was some stupid intern who was at fault for that. He got fired. And I believe that Trump's campaign actually did release a statement of apology regarding that. So let's continue.
Whether he would disavow the support of David Duke, a former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Trump wouldn't do it. And only later, again, under mounting pressure, did he backtrack.
Okay. There's no denying it, and I wrote about this a couple months ago on my personal blog. And I said this on my own podcast, the Whitfield Analysis. Him not disavowing David Duke sooner was a mistake. There's no denying that. He should have done that instantly. However, she has ties to Robert Byrd, who was not only part of the KKK, he was the Grand Wizard of the KKK. So, again, double standards here, ladies and gentlemen. She's accusing Trump of lying when she herself has lied. She's accused Trump of being affiliated and associating with racists when she herself has been associated with known racists, including the freaking Grand Wizard of the KKK. So there's that.
And when Trump was asked about anti-Semitic slurs and death threats coming from his supporters, he refused to condemn them. Through it all, he has continued.
I'm pretty sure he said that not all of his supporters are anti-Semite. Again, just because he doesn't condemn every little thing that his supporters may say, doesn't mean he necessarily condones anti-Semitism, doesn't condone racism. She's grasping at straws here, ladies and gentlemen.
Pushing discredited conspiracy theories with racist undertones. You remember he said that thousands of American Muslims in New Jersey cheered the 9/11 attacks. They didn't. He suggested that Senator Ted Cruz's father was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Now, perhaps in Trump's mind, because Mr. Cruz was a Cuban immigrant, he must have had something to do with it. And there is absolutely, of course, no evidence of that. Just recently, Trump claimed that President Obama founded ISIS. And he has repeated that over and over again.
Okay, the Obama founded ISIS comment, and there have been several people who have talked about this, but by doing nothing about the scourge of radical Islam in the Middle East, and by supporting rebellion groups who would later join up and build up ISIS, Donald Trump didn't mean that Obama literally founded ISIS, but that he helped build up ISIS by his indecision to do nothing. So, Hillary, I'm going to have to give Trump the go on this. He was right, not in the way you're describing, but by doing nothing, Obama has encouraged ISIS to grow and spread. And that's just the simple fact.
His latest paranoid fever dream is about my health. And all I can say is, Donald, dream on.
She says with that utterly creepy smile.
But my friends,
And that even creepier laugh.
but my friends, this is what happens when you treat the National Enquirer like gospel. They said in October I'd be dead in 6 months. It's also what happens when you listen to the radio host, Alex Jones, who claims that 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombings were inside jobs. He even said, and this really just is so disgusting, he even said the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre were child actors, and no one was actually killed there. I don't know.
Okay, now I have listened to Alex Jones. As many of my longtime fans know, I'm no fan of Alex Jones. I have been his biggest critic. I will agree with Hillary that the 9/11 Truther movement and the Oklahoma City Truther movement are both full of nonsense. 9/11 was not an inside jobby job, as some of the conspiracy theorists like to say, but it was in fact radical Islamic terror. However, during the Sandy Hook incident and during the Aurora shooting, I don't recall Alex Jones ever saying that either of those two instances had child actors or were staged. He did say that the government would try to use those to confiscate our guns, and lo and behold, he was right, because they did, both times unsuccessfully. But he never said, at least not that I can find, that Sandy Hook was fake. And again, you're speaking to someone who is Alex Jones' biggest critic on the right.
What happens in somebody's mind, or how dark their heart must be to say things like that? But Trump doesn't challenge these lies. He actually went on Jones's show and said, "Your reputation is amazing. I will not let you down." This from the man who wants to be president of the United States. You know, I've stood by.
Yeah, that's called being polite to the host, and that's usually what guests do when they're being interviewed by a host.
President Obama's side as he made the toughest decisions a commander-in-chief has to make. In times of crisis, our country depends on steady leadership, clear thinking, calm judgment, because one wrong move can mean the difference between life and death. I know we have veterans here, and I know we have families, mothers and spouses and children of people currently serving. The last thing we need in the Situation Room is a loose cannon who can't tell the difference, or doesn't care to, between fact and fiction, and who buys so easily into racially tinged rumors. Someone so detached from reality should never be in charge of making decisions that are as real as they come.
Well, there you go, Hillary. You just disqualified yourself from running for the presidency there, babe. Because clearly, judging from what you've said in this speech, you're not fully up to reality either.
That is yet another reason why Donald Trump is simply temperamentally unfit to be president of the United States. Now, I hear and I read some people who are saying, well, that his bluster and his bigotry is just overheated campaign rhetoric. An outrageous person saying outrageous things for attention. But look at his policies. The ones that Trump has proposed, they would put prejudice into practice. And don't be distracted by his latest efforts to muddy the waters. He may have some new people putting new words in his mouth, but we know where he stands. He would form a deportation force to round up millions of immigrants and kick them out of the country. He'd abolish the bedrock constitutional principle that says if you're born in the United States, you're an American citizen. He says that children...
I don't think he ever said anything about abolishing that principle. Again, this woman is unfit. Where is she pulling this stuff from? She's pulling it out of her rear end, that's for sure. But Trump never said anything about if you were born here in this country, we're going to kick you out. Again, show me the evidence, Hillary. Not seeing it.
Born to undocumented parents in America are anchor babies and should be deported. Millions of them. He'd banned Muslims around the world from entering our country just because of their religion.
Because we have a problem with radical Islam, you stupid cow. We have a problem with radical Islam. And until we can figure out who is who, I do think it's a good idea that we, just keep any more Muslims from entering the country until we get a better handle on our national security efforts.
Now think about that for a minute. How would that actually work? So people landing in U.S. airports would line up to get their passports stamped, just like they do now. But in Trump's America, when they step up to the counter, the immigration officer would ask every single person, "What is your religion?" And then what? What if someone says, "I'm a Christian," but the agent doesn't believe him? Do they have to prove it? How would they do that? Really, ever since the Pilgrims...
This is a valid point that she's bringing up, and one question I've had, and another question that Steven Crowder has brought up as well on his podcast. He does need to explain how he's going to make this part work, but the idea behind it is sound, because we do have a problem with radical Islam.
Landed on Plymouth Rock, America has distinguished itself as a haven for people fleeing religious persecution, believing in religious freedom and religious liberty. Under Donald Trump, America would distinguish itself as the only country in the world to impose a religious test at the border. Now, come to think of it, there actually may be one other place that does that, the so-called Islamic State, the territory that ISIS controls. What a cruel irony that someone running for president would equate us with them. Now, but don't worry, some will say, as president, Trump will be surrounded by smart advisors who will rein in his worst impulses. So when a tweet gets under his skin and he wants to retaliate with a cruise missile, maybe cooler heads will convince him not to. Well, maybe. But look at who he's put in charge of his campaign. Trump likes to say he only hires the best people, but he's had to fire so many campaign managers, it's like an episode from The Apprentice. And the latest shakeup was designed to, quote, let Trump be Trump. So to do that, he hired Stephen Bannon, the head of a right-wing website called Breitbart.com, as the campaign CEO. Now, to give you a flavor...
And here's the drumline, ladies and gentlemen. Here is where we're coming to. Okay, so she goes after Steve Bannon, mentions Breitbart.com. Now, I've said this before. Breitbart.com is not the same website that it was when Andrew Breitbart started it, okay? Steve Bannon has not done the best job of running that company. He's gotten rid of a couple of, I would say, associates of mine, which I'm not happy about. But Steve Bannon, I don't think Steve Bannon is a racist. And a right-wing hate fringe website, Breitbart.com. This isn't Breitbart's first rodeo as a company with languaging like that. So who knows? Maybe this will help them. And I can guarantee you that there must have been a certain percentage of the population that went out to go and search and try and find out what Breitbart.com was. Thus, by doing this speech, Hillary just increased Breitbart's web traffic.
Of his work, here are a few headlines they've published. And I'm not making this up. Birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. Would you rather your child had feminism or cancer? Gabby Giffords, the gun control movement's human shield. Hoisted high and proud, the Confederate flag proclaims a glorious heritage. And that one came shortly after the Charleston massacre, when Democrats and Republicans alike were doing everything they could to heal racial divides that Breitbart and Bannon tried to inflame. Just imagine Donald Trump reading that and thinking, this is what I need more of in my campaign. Now, Bannon has...
Okay, now all those headlines that she just mentioned... Do you guys know who wrote them? If your answer is Milo Yiannopoulos, you would be correct. Now, Hillary decides to go after Steve Bannon because, okay, Steve Bannon is a white guy. He's a businessman. He's kind of middle-aged slash elderly. He's an easy target. But as many of you know, Milo Yiannopoulos is a young journalist. Not only that, but he's British. He's blonde. And he's conservative also. Let's put that up there. But here's the real kicker. Milo Yiannopoulos is a flaming homosexual too. Yes, Hillary. So, I just find it very odd that she decided to read all of Milo's headlines and yet wouldn't credit Milo at all for any of those headlines. Could that be, and this is just my theory, I think Hillary Clinton is afraid of Milo Yiannopoulos in particular. Why? Because the left has had this narrative for a while that conservatives are homophobic and that they're misogynists. And yet, Milo is this flamboyant gay guy from Great Britain, so he's an immigrant too, in a sense. So if she uttered Milo's name, people would go to search for him, find out who he was, read some of his articles, and then if they took the time to really find out who he was, they would find out that Milo isn't the horrible, awful person that the left has tried to make him out to be, that Breitbart might not be as bad as they're claiming to be, and that the alt-right isn't as bad as people are claiming it to be on the left. And by her mentioning Milo's name, it would essentially destroy her entire narrative in and of itself. I honestly think it would. And so that's why she's not mentioning Milo's name. Alright, let's see if we can finish this up.
Nasty things to say about pretty much everyone. This spring, he railed against Speaker Paul Ryan for, quote, rubbing his social justice Catholicism in my nose every second. No wonder he's gone to work for Trump, the only presidential candidate ever to get into a public feud with the Pope. It's truly hard to believe, but according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, Breitbart embraces ideas on the extremist fringe of the conservative right. This is not conservatism as we have known it. This is not republicanism as we have known it. These are racist ideas, race-baiting ideas, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, all key tenets making up the emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. Now, alt-right is short for alternative right. The Wall Street Journal describes it as a loose but organized movement, mostly online, that rejects mainstream conservatism, promotes nationalism, and views immigration and multiculturalism as threats to white identity. So the de facto merger between Breitbart and the Trump campaign represents a landmark achievement for this group.
Okay, so Hillary has no authority to speak on conservatism, okay? She just doesn't because of who she is. And because of Bill, too, I might add. She has been the enemy of conservatism for her entire political career. So, yeah, I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt by trying to say that the alt-right isn't conservatism as we previously know. It isn't, but I'm not going to give you the benefit of saying that because you have no idea what conservatism is, Hillary. I don't think you do, at least. And even if this were a more traditional conservative presidential race, she would still be saying all these things about conservatives being racist and hateful and whatnot. So yeah, I'm really not buying this, Hillary. I'm not.
Fringe element that has effectively taken over the Republican Party. And this is part of a broader story, the rising tide of hardline right-wing nationalism around the world. Just yesterday, one of Britain's most prominent right-wing leaders, a man named Nigel Farage, who stoked anti-immigrant sentiments to win the referendum to have Britain leave the European Union, campaigned with Donald Trump in Mississippi. Farage has called for a bar on the children of legal immigrants from public schools and health services, has said women are, and I quote, worth less than men, and supports scrapping laws that prevent employers from discriminating based on race. That's who Donald Trump wants by his side when he is addressing an audience.
Okay, I don't know where she's getting that about Farage. haven't heard him saying anything about banning immigrant children. I've never heard him say that women are less than men. And yeah, that third thing that she said, I'm not even going to mention it. It's just, and in fact, this is all I can take, ladies and gentlemen. The speech is just so utterly pathetic. It really is. So, in everything that she has said about the alt-right, not everything, but the vast majority of it is a lie. And it's a huge problem. So, let's break this down, shall we? Alright guys, so I'm back in present day. You watched the video of my analysis on Hillary Clinton's alt-right speech. And I know it was a bit long, but I want to thank you for bearing with me. So, one of the things that I do find funny and quite humorous, honestly, is the fact that Hillary Clinton's plan to warn people about the alt-right backfired. Because the alt-right, mainly the alt-right just wants attention. And guess what? Hillary Clinton gave the alt-right the exact type of attention that they want. And there's even more to this, too. By not mentioning who Milo Yiannopoulos is, people are going to go to Breitbart.com, they're going to read these headlines, they're going to find out who Milo is, and then they're going to do research on him, and then most of them will probably end up loving Milo. So, all in all, Hillary's speech actually backfired in favor of the alt-right, and I just think it's cool. It really is cool. Alright folks, so I want to thank you for watching the Whitfield Report this week. If you like the video, please click like, subscribe, and if you're listening to this on tape, right, please give us a favorite, or whatever the method is on there, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. From all of us here at AmericanWatchman.org, I'm Sam Whitfield, signing off.